You've landed on the Lonely Diplomat podcast, and wherever you are in the world, from Cairo to Canberra, Caracas, Castries, Chisinau, Colombo, Conakry, and Copenhagen, and all places in between, welcome. I'm Phil McAuliffe. I'm the Lonely Diplomat, and I have a site, thelonelydiplomat.com, which is all about supporting, serving, challenging and inspiring diplomats and those who live the diplomatic life as they live the highs and lows of their diplomatic life. I'm so pleased that you're here, and whether you are watching on YouTube or you're listening through your favorite podcast provider, welcome. It's just great to have you here. This episode is episode 36 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast. And we're going to be having, well, frankly, a really tough conversation in this episode. And I have been thinking long and hard about this, my response to the topic that we're going to be talking about, which is about marriage infidelity. And the only way that I can do this is to do this in a kind and honest way. One of the things, if you're a regular listener and listener of the podcast and reader of my blog, is that I don't shy away from having these tough conversations or conversations about tough topics. And my advice that I give often is that no conversation, there's nothing that can't be improved, or no topic that can't be discussed if we approach it with kindness and honesty, and that starts within ourselves, and then is that kindness and honesty is shared with other people. Now, that doesn't mean that these conversations are easier. They're difficult conversations and they're difficult topics for a reason. But within my own life, listener and viewer, I can say with my hand on my heart that kindness and honesty becomes a superpower when we don't know, if not a superpower, a way forward, when we don't know how to start these conversations. And when it comes to something like a topic like marriage infidelity, it can feel that this is such a taboo topic. It's such a personal and private topic that we don't talk about it. And yes, undeniably, it is a personal and private topic that is unique to the parties involved. And that's not what we're going to do today. We're not going to unstitch and dissect the issue of marriage infidelity that was shared with me by one of you, my awesome global audience. And before I go on, I do want to express my extreme gratitude and say how humbled I am for the trust displayed in me, placed in me, when sharing this issue with me. While this is a private and personal matter between the parties involved, they are certainly not the only people who live the diplomatic life who go through it. And that's the lens through which I'm looking at this issue today. That while it is private, it is not for public dissection. The details of marriage infidelity, they're not alone. Certainly, they are not alone. There are. I mean, how can we possibly quantify how many couples who live the diplomatic life are unfaithful? How can we possibly, people don't respond in surveys on a Survey Monkey or, on social media. It's like, yes, I cheat. And, my other half doesn't know about it. So what happens in the absence of fact? Stories fill the void. And stories generally in this instance come from gossip. And so when we do engage on a serious topic such as marriage infidelity, we tend to engage with it quietly and in shame, ruled by shame. We gossip. We at once want the juicy details, but then fear, like we are attracted and repulsed by it. We want the juicy details, but then we fear others talking about our relationship, and we can fear the state of our relationship, which then just sort of perpetuates that shame spiral. Not here, not at the Lonely Diplomat. That's not what I do. That's not what we do here, and that's not what I'm here for. Because with kindness and honesty, we can talk about anything in this forum. You can share anything with me through my mentoring services. So with all of that in mind, with kindness and honesty in mind, I want to proceed with the rest of the conversation in this episode. So I'm going to share with you some of the details and to set the scene. But know that all the details have been edited to focus on the issue and to avoid the parties being identified. Okay, the important thing is to talk about the issue and to give you something to think about if you are in a relationship, or if you are a human who is living the diplomatic life, and humans need relationships to feel that we are seen, that we are heard, and that we belong. Romantic, platonic, we need to feel that connection. So all the details have been edited to protect the privacy of the parties involved. We're going to be talking about the issue, not the salacious details. So the person who shared this with me, she is a posted diplomat. She is senior and has a very important job at a diplomatic mission. And she found out that her husband, who is accompanying her, was having an affair. And the couple is going to therapy, which is a great thing. And because she is senior and because she occupies a senior position in a diplomatic mission and has a very important, big leadership job within the mission, she said that she is putting on a brave face, and which I'm imagining involves making it look like nothing is going on, and that everything is fine. She did share with me that 2020 was stressful enough. 2020 was like, just had so much in it already, and then this was added to the cluster. to the awfulness of 2020. So those are that's sort of setting the scene. And without doubt, this is tough. This is tough, and you listener, you viewer on YouTube are likely doing what I did and sitting back and thinking about relationships, thinking about past relationships, thinking about current relationships, and internalizing what happened, and may even be feeling, our own internal shame spiral. If that's you, let's just notice that. Let's just notice that shame spiral and acknowledge it for what it is. And we are seeking to protect ourselves from something that's very difficult. That's what a shame spiral is. And knowing that we're not alone in going through these, descending these shame spirals, enduring a shame storm, and knowing the power of kindness and honesty, we're going to take a step forward after acknowledging that shame spiral and the shame storm within us. And I'm profoundly grateful. I'm profoundly grateful for the courage that the audience member displayed in sharing that with me, sharing her experience with me. When we live the diplomatic life, as we know, and this has been the content, the subject of a blog back in I think February 2019, and a podcast. We're always on. We're always on, and even when we're at home, we are just always on. We are never not representing our country when we are on a diplomatic posting. That applies to the third secretary as much as it applies to the ambassador. One is just more public than the other. But we are always on. And when we are always on, we are always at work. And the diplomatic life, that fact that we are always on, places unique stresses on a relationship. Absolutely unique stresses on a relationship. And it's important to acknowledge that as fact. And this isn't the normal life where, work can be left at the office and you get your weekends and evenings entirely free of work interruptions. The entire reason that we are living the diplomatic life is because it's work. And in many respects, the feeling that work owns us is real. That the feeling becomes fact, because really it is fact. Work owns us. And not only does work own the posted diplomat, the work owns the rest of the family unit, the accompanying significant other, children if there are children involved. That is, I maintain, a cause, or at least a contributing factor into many of us who live the diplomatic life feeling isolated and alone, because we must put on our mask and suit up, and put on, in my instance, put on my work glasses as opposed to my fun glasses, and leave our house being the representative of our country. Doing that for many years, doing that for any period of time, years or otherwise, can lead us to feel entirely normally isolated and alone, because it's exhausting projecting an image into the world that we have all of our shit together all the time. Because it's just not true. It's not true. It's humanly impossible. As awesome a human as those who are diplomats and live the diplomatic life are, we're still human. We're still human, subject to the human condition. So what concerns me about this is that there is a brave face being put on. And that is surely exhausting. And not only is the loneliness and the isolation concerning from having to put a brave face on, and putting a brave face on is understandable, because not everybody in our lives, in our office, in wider social circles, has earned the right to hear what's going on in our lives. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying in the slightest. But I think we just need to acknowledge that putting a face on, putting a mask on, the pretending that everything's fine, that we've got all of our shit sorted, is exhausting, and is a key contributor to feeling lonely and isolated. also for the accompanying significant other, that is also a contributing factor that, you know, we are seen. And this is something that my friend Georgie Ryan shared in episode 2 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast and in her awesome blog post, Diplomatic Spouses of the World Unite, which I published back in February 2019, that even the spouse, even the accompanying significant other is the representative of the country, and indeed is often the more visible in the community representative, unpaid representative of that country's government. So the diplomat goes to work at the diplomatic mission, but the spouse becomes the diplomat spouse going to the supermarket, going to, you know, living life in the community, and often is far more visible. And that comes with stresses. Above and beyond what we could reasonably expect couples who don't live the diplomatic life to confront and endure. And unless we have lived that, the theory remains conceptual. But when that theory becomes our lived reality, we have such an understanding of what that stress means. And so if you are a diplomat and live the diplomatic life but haven't yet been on a posting, then I wish that I could translate this feeling to you. But there is just this underlying expectation that, you know, you somehow, you know, become you plus your work, you plus your spouses, your significant others' work. And because we can feel, whichever position we are in the relationship, whichever, you know, if we're the post diplomat or the accompanying significant other, feeling isolated, feeling alone is feeling isolated and feeling alone. We're not going to get into competitive loneliness, who deserves to be more lonely in this situation. Loneliness is loneliness, and previous content has made my thoughts on that very, very clear. The issue here, however, that we need to keep in mind, and I ask you kindly and honestly to keep in mind, is that humans need to feel seen. Humans need to feel heard, and humans need to feel that we belong to something beyond us. And where we don't feel seen, where we don't feel heard, where we don't feel that we belong, we will look for it in ways, even if it harms us, even if it harms those most important to us. So that might include looking for fulfillment in the arms of another person outside of our relationship. That might be looking for that sense of belonging, that sense of being heard and seen. That feeling of anything might be being searched for at the bottom of a glass. It might be, you know, in the consumption of prescription or illicit substances. It might be, you know, exercise. It might be done from work. It might be, you know, in times when we could travel. It might be whatever, shopping, gambling, whatever your vice is. Generally, those kind of addictions are from trying to feel something, and trying to feel that we are seen, heard, and that we belong is a powerful driver, and we feel disconnected. And so we try to connect to something in a way that doesn't serve us. It certainly doesn't serve the people that we love the most. I flagged that there is a lot of content already on the lonelydiplomat.com about the challenges that diplomats and those who live the diplomatic life, be they a male spouse, a female spouse, a same-sex spouse, child, all face. And there's lots of content already, both in podcast and as a blog. And I invite you to go and review those and listen to those, because there's some awesome content in there. There's some fantastic conversations that I've had with people like Georgie, like Jacqueline Bendorf, like Kevin Hunting, and an interview that I had with Simon, who wrote on being a male diplomatic spouse. But one of the things that comes through in each and every blog and podcast on this topic is the issue that underlines all of this, is a sense of worth. And that when you are a significant other accompanying a diplomat, and you have lost your sense of worth, you can really struggle during your diplomatic life. If you derive your sense of worth from what you do, you can really struggle. And until we derive our sense of worth from who we are is portable. Who we are is easily, because wherever we are in the world, there we are. But if we derive our sense of worth, our value, our see ourselves as our job first and foremost, and we're not doing that job anymore, we can really struggle, really struggle with our sense of worth. I promise you that while making that switch from what you do and deriving your sense of worth from what you do to who you are is really hard. It's really difficult. It's emotionally difficult. And there's a reason that most of us don't do it. It's because it's so hard. But I promise you that while it is hard, you don't do it alone, nor is it never not worth it. It is always worth it, because the sense of comfort, the sense of being, I guess, confident in being who you are. No matter what you're doing, you are who you are. And being who you are, at work, at home, in the community, wherever it is, that can't be bought. But you have to earn that. You have to work to it. So there's a couple of things that I want to say here, is that I'm not an expert on relationships. I'm in a relationship. I've been in a relationship that has ended, and I'm in the business of living my diplomatic life as well as you are. And that I derive great support, inspiration from the work of Esther Perel. And I'll put a link in the episode description, both on YouTube and for this podcast. And she's an expert on relationships and affairs, not how to have an affair, but how to recover from having an affair. And she maintains through, I think it was a TED Talk, that working through with kindness and honesty, working through with help of a relationship counselor, the reasons for and the impact of an extramarital affair or an affair outside of a relationship can actually then make the relationship stronger. The relationship will always be different. It's never going to go back to how it was, but the relationship can actually be made stronger. And also, I can't recommend the work of Mark Groves. So he's got a site called Create the Love, which is on social media, and he has some outstanding advice. And it's from him that I got the concept of kindness and honesty. And he just has some fantastic advice on worth, our own self-worth in a relationship, and knowing our self-worth, what we will and will not tolerate in a relationship. So Esther Perel, Mark Groves, there's going to be links to that in the episode description. Cannot recommend them enough. But back to the scenario, there are absolutely no winners in this scenario. There is absolutely no winners. There are only broken, hurt people who need to feel broken, who need to feel hurt, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I'm concerned as a human, concerned as someone who has lived the diplomatic life, who has been the posted diplomat, who has accompanied a diplomat on 2 diplomatic postings. I really feel that comment of having to put on a brave face because people depend on you, that goes straight to the core of the issue. I was about to say what's wrong there, but I just want to honour the courage and bravery that it takes to show up when you're feeling, show up and perform, show up and lead, show up and be when you're feeling completely devastated within yourself. I'm in awe of that courage. I'm in awe of that courage. I just took a very deep breath there for a very good reason, because I want to address the man in this scenario. And I don't intend to shame him. Without doubt, he's feeling enough shame without me pontificating and prophesizing behind a microphone here in Wellington. He doesn't need that. Making like he's feeling bad enough, possibly feeling bad enough about himself now. But you have an opportunity here. Speaking directly to the man, you have an opportunity here to show up, to acknowledge that you made a mistake and to show up. Because I'm going to say that there were multiple points in the path to having an affair. There were multiple points where you could have thrown out the anchor and stopped and arrested the slide into what may have felt like, an inevitable conclusion of having the affair. And those points where you could have thrown out the anchor involved you having a hard and uncomfortable conversation. And in your way, you may have thought you were having hard and uncomfortable conversations. It may have just sort of been started a tough and uncomfortable conversation by, leaving something unsaid or saying something cryptically in the hope that was picked up, and it wasn't picked up because it was so subtle. And you weren't clear or whatever it is, but you avoided, almost without doubt, you avoided having the tough conversation. So to you, kindness and honesty. To you, the guy who had the affair. To you, the listener who is having an affair or is finding yourself on that being attracted to someone outside of your relationship where it's not condoned within the relationship. You are avoiding having those tough conversations. So my gift to you, my suggestion to you is learn how to have kind and honest conversations. And you have kind and honest conversations by getting uncomfortable, by getting vulnerable. But you got yourself into a situation where you were having an affair and you got caught. And it's only when you got caught that you then said, I need help. Like, really? Really? What's with that? What's with that? And why do we men do that? Why do we get into such situations, be it an extramarital affair or, any kind of situation. And then, when we get caught, we're like, oh God, really sorry. I'll make it up. No, it's because we want to avoid those tough, vulnerable conversations. And this isn't the exclusive domain of men. And this is a human aspect. This is a human trait, I've got no doubt. But in my work, in doing coaching work with my friend, coach and mentor, Mike Campbell, for his Everyday Legends Academy program, I see this all the time, that we men are terrified of our own humanity. We are terrified of our own vulnerability. So I'm going to say this with kindness and honesty, but I'm going to say this very directly. Fair swear warning here, ladies and gentlemen. So if there are youngies around, then cover them and just for the next few seconds. But this is back directly to the men listening who are in this situation. Man the fuck up. Swearing done now. You might think that being a man is all about having everything sorted and not needing help. You might think that, being a man and completely understandably, because society can tell us that this is how men act, is that, you're only a man when you can sort yourself out and still have capacity to being all things to yourself all of the time, and then having capacity to be all things to everybody else around you all the time. That is the behavior of a little boy pretending to be a man, hoping that that's what being man enough is. For me, and in my work with men, being a man is to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is a requirement to having the tough conversations. Being vulnerable is the requirement to being honest. Being honest with yourself first and foremost. And the courage that it takes a human, full stop, the courage that it takes a man in many of our societies to admit to ourselves, let alone to others, that we don't have everything sorted. The courage that requires is immense. And I will respect that. I will honor that. I will celebrate it any day of the week at all hours of the day, because that is really bloody hard to do. So if you are listening and you're a man and you find yourself in this situation or a similar situation, let me introduce you to my friend, coach, and mentor, Mike Campbell. Reach out to me and I can hook you up. He did with me. And I help him with other men to work through themselves, to get over themselves, to get beyond the stories that they're telling that we tell ourselves about what we should be and get us to what we are and then put us into the world. That takes so much courage. That, to me, is what being a man is. None of this stupid alpha male bravado bullshit. None of that. But actually having the courage to be vulnerable, having the courage to have those tough conversations with kindness and honesty with ourselves and with those most important to us. Can you be courageous and reach out for that help and support that is just a text, just an email away? Can you do that? I'm not sure, as I wrap this up, I'm not sure if this has been helpful to the situation, but it's not my intention to fix the issue between that couple. That's for the couple to fix in the way that works for them. My aim, as I said, was to have a kind and honest conversation that you, who is not a party to what's going on in that particular relationship, but you can extrapolate into your own lived experience, your own relationship. And I know that couple is not alone. I just know it. I know it. You know it too. But there are so many couples, and potentially even you, who are in that situation. And so, as is the case with many of the topics that I cover here on The Lonely Diplomat, is that we are like, things only improve when we have kind and honest and open conversations that are ruled with empathy. And because that's how things change. When we keep it behind closed doors, when we let shame rule our responses and gossip and fear within ourselves, oh, thank God that wasn't me. That's not helpful. Indeed, that can be harmful, particularly the gossip. And relationship stuff is so juicy and gossipy anyway, but oh my God, it's toxic. So toxic. So let's have that kind and honest conversation. This diplomatic life is hard enough on the diplomat. This diplomatic life is hard on the accompanying significant other. Be you man, woman, however you identify, it's hard enough. So why would we not want to engage in a constructive way on the issues that really matter to us? If you've got a question for me, if you've got a comment, feedback on this episode or any other episode, please do send me a message. Send me an email, admin@thelonelydiplomat.com. If you've got a question for me that you'd like to cover, an issue that you'd like me to cover on subsequent episodes of the Lonely Diplomat podcast, again, send me an email, admin@thelonelydiplomat.com, or reach out to me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I think that's it. I am a creature of social media, and please know that a like, a comment, a share, or indeed a follow or subscribe really does help. Spread the word of my work so other diplomats and those who live the diplomatic life know that they're not alone in living the highs and lows of this diplomatic life. And if you want me in your corner, if you feel that we've got a special connection, that I would love it if you want me in your corner to help you as you live your diplomatic life. And if you would like that for yourself, consider becoming, or just become a member of the Lonely Diplomat. And if you become a minister level member of the Lonely Diplomat, you can have me in your corner through a mentoring call, a 1-hour mentoring call every 3 months. And if you want me, want to have a one-on-one conversation with me every month, join to become a ambassador level member. All the details are on the lonelydiplomat.com. You can't miss it. It's like right on the top of the page, become a member, and there's all the information there. And feel free to shoot me an email if you want. Also on there's details of if you just want one only mentoring call with me, there's details on and links on how to book and booking that. Anyway, that's it from me today. I feel like I need to go and just practice some self-care. That was a tough episode. Not quite sure how you experienced, but for me that was really that was a not confronting episode, but that was a tough conversation to have. So I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea and just be kind to myself for a little while. Anyway, why don't you go and do the same? Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And until next time, be awesomely and humanly you, because the world really does need more you.